Hello everybody, and welcome to another video. My name is Jack, and today I'm going to be talking about why Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One movie was an unfaithful adaptation of the amazing novel that it's based on. If you're new to the channel, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications, and join me down below in the comment section to share your thoughts on the Ready Player One movie or book if you've read or watched it, and some other ideas for movies and pieces of media that you want us to cover in future videos. So when I was 10, I was at a sleepover at a buddy's house with a bunch of other guys, and we wanted to watch a new movie, and we ended up settling on Ready Player One, which had come out earlier that year. Now, I absolutely loved this movie since the Oasis just seemed like a fun world that I really wanted to explore. I thought the characters, Art3mis and I-Rock specifically, were pretty cool, and as a massive nerd who anchored onto a lot of older pop culture from my parents' generation, I loved the crossover element of that opening race scene in the final battle. I instantly adopted it as one of my favorite movies. Like, come on, it's kind of impossible to be 10 years old and see a movie where Iron Giant fights Mechagodzilla and not think it's the best thing ever. I rewatched it whenever I had a friend over who hadn't seen it or when I was homesick from school, and as sad as this sounds, I've seen it far more times than any other Spielberg film. But all that changed when, out of curiosity, I read the original novel by Ernest Cline. The book is just a masterpiece, celebrating the era of pop culture in which the writer grew up, putting its reader in the shoes of the main character, making it impossible to put down, and teaching this great message of coming more in touch with the world around you and not spending as much time on the internet. Now, to revisit the movie, it has none of the things that make the book special. There are things I still like about the film adaptation, such as the race at the beginning, the eye-catching character designs, and a couple of the performances, specifically from TJ Miller and Mark Rylance, but at the end of the day, it's still a bastardization of one of my favorite pieces of fiction. This is evident through its simplification of the characters and their individual arcs, the substitution of genuine homage for cheap product placement, and its contradiction to every message that the book had. In the book, the main protagonist, Wade Watts, also known by his Oasis username, Parzival, endures and grows through so much over the course of the story. He starts out as a loser, not having any cool stuff in the Oasis, stranded on this school planet, but then his life changes when he happens to be smart enough to crack Halliday's first clue. We see him struggle to solve each and every puzzle that comes his way, stretching his brain out as he gets stuck on levels and falling victim to his vice of hyperfocus, but getting past that to accomplish great things. He really gets caught up in this illusion of the Oasis, shutting out the reality around him and becoming fully addicted to the simulation in his lowest moment. But in the movie, Wade's kind of a Gary Stu. At the start of the story, he's already this badass gunter with the DeLorean from Back to the Future. We don't really see him level up. He's just as cool at the end of the movie as he is at the beginning, just plus a girlfriend and Halliday's egg. He's just lucky to be the only person that thinks to go backwards on the race and get the biggest Easter egg by finding the first Easter egg in any video game, which are dumb, in front of plain sight things that any other gunter could figure out. We never see him fail. He's just this absolute pop culture expert who blasts through the entire egg hunt in a couple of weeks, and it's not like he has any flaws at the beginning of the story that he works at the end, unlike the book where he completely changes his whole view on the world. And the thing that upsets me the most about his abridged development is the way they completely ruined his relationship with Art3mis. In the book, they're kind of meant for each other as they really connect, so that's why it's devastating when she pushes him away. But in the movie, she's just some Twitch streamer he has a crush on, so she has every right to claim he doesn't know her and kick him in the nuts. They also don't meet in the real world until the very end of the book, and it's a really powerful moment, unlike the movie where they meet 30 minutes in and it's this totally just rushed Hallmark Disney Channel romance. Oh, and while we're on the note of the supporting characters, nobody who's likable in the book is likable in the movie. Each is completely dumbed down to their defining personality trait of black chick with the van, and Wade meeting H in the real world lacks any of the emotional significance that it has in the book. There's a massive plot point in the book involving Daito that's bafflingly left out of the movie. Simon Pegg is kind of a weird casting choice for Ogden Morrow, considering Og in the book is described as a big guy that's a mix between Santa Claus and Albert Einstein, not to mention how undermined his significance to the story of the movie is. And Shoto, poor Shoto, man. First of all, they get his name, age, interests, and personality wrong, and they massacred my boy so bad that I could make an entire video about it. There's a couple characters I like in the movie, like Ben Mendelsohn did a good job as Sereno, but the movie doesn't give you nearly as many reasons to hate him as the book does. I liked Mark Rylance as Halliday, but that's still a character that only exists in flashbacks and stuff, so it's not like he had any present tense arc to carry. So I guess at the end of the day, my favorite character in the movie is I-Rock, played by TJ Miller. He says some funny stuff and does more for the actual plot than book I rock, so that's cool. But if the best performance in a Steven Spielberg movie belongs to TJ, the Emoji Movie Miller, then you know you got a pretty crappy Spielberg movie. It also takes the pop culture references of the book, which function as celebratory homages to the era of geekery in which the writer grew up, and it turns that into cheap product placement, making the story seem like the unoriginal antithesis of artistic expression. The book has lots of references to pre-existing works of art, but it never feels cheap or forced. It all comes from a genuine place of love. The challenges are all direct inserts of films, video games, and albums from the 1980s, but they're all somewhat underrated pieces of media that maybe not everybody in the current generation will have heard of, such as War Games, Black Tiger, or Rush's 2112. This is all somewhat underrated stuff that the novel will encourage you to check out, and, as Ernest Cline says in the book's acknowledgments, I want to thank all the writers, filmmakers, actors, musicians, programmers, game designers, and geeks whose work I've paid tribute to in this story. These people have all entertained and enlightened me, and I hope that, like Halliday's Hunt, this book will inspire others to seek out their creations. The movie, however, doesn't give exposure to underrated works of art. It's basically another Space Jam 2 in the sense it screams at the audience, look at all this cool shit Warner Brothers owns. There's nothing genuine, inspired, or heartfelt about out-of-context scares from The Shining, or Daito turning into Gundam when any other giant robot would have sufficed, or that one Sixer dropping the F-bomb before getting stabbed to death by Chucky. These are all things that people have heard or seen before, and pointing them out in the background being the only meaning they provide to the film's enjoyment is nowhere near as effective as the faithful shoutouts of the movie's source material. Lastly, I find it extremely infuriating how the movie kind of contradicts every message that the book has. The book shows that hard work pays off, with each member of the High Five absolutely grinding on beating the Sixers and the reward of it being extremely meaningful. The movie never demonstrates the traits that separate the core characters from everyone else in the Oasis, and they get unfairly far by knowing where to look from minimal research and just wandering around inside of these challenges. But most of all, the movie abandons how the original story shows the importance of connecting with the reality around you and not spending too much time in unreal worlds like video games or the internet, even though there's upsides to those things. Wade gets absolutely caught up in the illusion and the hunt that he ends up shutting out everybody else around him. But at the end of the book, he realizes that the most important thing about his adventure was the lifelong friends he made from it. That's why immediately after winning Halliday's egg, instead of basking in his victory, the first thing he does is rush outside to finally meet Art3mis in the real world. The movie, however, completely misses the point. 10-year-old me watching this always wanted the Oasis to be real and inspired me to waste all my time alone in my room reading Marvel character encyclopedias and blasting through Wikipedia articles, because that's what I thought would really make me cool. Whereas I should have been hanging out with friends more frequently and made more priceless memories. We never see Wade mess up or lose anything from being sucked into the simulation. We never see him come more in touch with the real world around him. But you know what we do see? Him hold a boombox over his head to summon the most badass army in all of pop culture. We see him shoot a railgun out of the door of a DeLorean, and we see him have maximum aura through wearing a Buckaroo Banzai costume and dancing to the New Order. He does cool stuff inside of the Oasis, and he never learns the importance of life without it, unlike the book where we get deeper morals in addition to the nerd candy. The movie tries to drive home this message about reality being important with the last couple scenes, but that doesn't stick the same way it does with the book because you never witness any character moments to back that up. So at the end of the day, while the movie's a fun watch, it's still just a pale imitation of an infinitely better novel. The book has much more sophisticatedly written characters. It's got great use of pop culture references, and it has much more thematic substance. If you haven't read the book, I can't urge you enough to check it out. It's such a page turner that means a lot to me as a person, and it's easily my favorite piece of literature ever conceived, whereas the film is ultra mid and one of the worst entries to Steven Spielberg's legendary filmography. It's just really a bummer because the first book is so amazing, but then the movie kind of ruins everything that made the book good, and then the second book, well, that's kind of a discussion for a whole other video. But I guess Ernest Cline just made something really awesome, and that's something worth celebrating, even if he wasn't able to properly adapt it or follow it up with something equally cool. But that's gonna have to wrap it up for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and before we wrap up, please remember to like or subscribe and comment if you enjoyed this video. Until next time, YouTube, I will see you on the flip side.